bottom. Last word on the line. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Avodas kochavim she'ovdin osel b'makel. Because if there was a particular avodah Zara that they would worship it with the staff. How would you worship it with the staff? Rashi says over here, shemekashkish in lefaneh b'makel. Literally, again, they would make noise with the staff in front of it. Right? Literally, shemekashkish just means like they would hit against it. They would hit against it with the staff. So the Gemara says, Shavar Malkel Befanel, if you broke the staff in front of the idol, Chayiv, then one would be Chayiv. Zorak Malkel Befanel, but if you threw the stone in front of it, then what? Then you threw the staff. If you threw the staff at the idol, then Pater. So if you broke the staff in front of it, you'd be Chayiv for Avoda Zara. If you threw the staff at it, you would be Pater. So let's say, what's the pshat over here? So again, Rashi points out. Well, let's take a look. Amalei Abai l'Rava. So Abai says to Rava, Maishna shever. Why is it that if you break the staff in front of the idol, that's like Avoda Zara? Dahavele ke'in zevicha. So Rava said the act of breaking a staff is similar to the act of shchita. Why is it similar to the act of shchita? Because when you shecht an animal, you break its neck. So because there's an element of breakage associated with slaughter, therefore the act of breaking the staff in front of the Avodah Zara is the equivalent, or I should say resembles some type of Avodah Bifnim, some type of temple service. Remember again, this is coming on the tails of the Sugya yesterday, where in order to be chayav for serving Avodah Zara, that which I do for the Avodah Zara has to resemble something done inside the Beis HaMikdash. So if I snap the staff, that is like going ahead and snapping the neck of the animal, and therefore is going to be aser. So on the other hand, the act of throwing the staff at the idol does not resemble anything inside the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore again one will be pater. Amar lei. So the Gemara says, Amar lei ba'ina zrika mishtaberes v'leka. I'm sorry, zarak nami havi lekein zrika. But one second, even if you throw the staff, throwing the staff also resembles the avodah of zrika. Right? Zrika means when you sprinkle the blood. So why isn't throwing the staff like throwing the blood? To which the Gemara says, Amar lei ba'ina zrika mishtaberes. Because it will say literally you need a broken zrika. What is, or I should say a zrika that breaks apart. What does it mean a zrika that breaks apart? So it will say when you sprinkle blood, so the coin picks up the blood, and ultimately again it starts off in larger droplets, but then as you sprinkle it, the droplets break apart. So in order for something to resemble zrika, it has to be what's called zrika mishtaberes. And that's not the case, obviously, when you throw the staff against the idol. So the Gemara says, is that true? Safas leitzoa, oshenasach lefana avet shamei miraglayim. Let's say if you took an animal, and you literally, again, put excrement in the mouth of the animal. Idol. Oshenasach, this is the way you're worshiping the idol. You're putting excrement in the mouth of the idol. Oshenasach lefana avet shamei miraglayim. Or you take urine, and you sprinkle the urine on the idol. Both the top of Nonalev Chayiv. One will be chayiv for such an avoda. Okay, so bishlama avid shlamim raglayim because you come mishtaberes. So I understand in the case of sprinkling the urine, you'll be chayiv for that. Why? Because that does resemble zrika in the Beis HaMikdash. How so? Because it's what's called zrika mishtaberes. In other words, you're sprinkling something, and the object is breaking apart as you sprinkle it. Meaning it breaks apart into smaller droplets. Elotzoa. So, but one second, when it comes to the smearing of the excrement in the animal, in the idol. So ultimately, again, what do you chayiv for? What does that resemble? How does that resemble zrika? To which the Gemara says, "Bitzoa lacha." It's talking about again with watery excrement. So with watery excrement, if you sprinkle it, ultimately again, it too will be a zrika mishtaberes. It will break apart when sprinkled, and therefore again resembles the zrika of the Beis Hamikdash. So we'll see. Let's say that this is machlokes tanoim. Shachat lachagav. Listen to this. If you shechted a grasshopper for avodah zara, Rabbi Yehuda mechayiv. Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayiv. The chacham poach and the chacham say you're pater. My love b'hakim efir. Are they not arguing about the following point? Demar savra amrinan kein zevicha. So one opinion says you're going to be chayiv. Why? Because if something resembles an act of slaughter, therefore again you're chayiv for avodah zara. This resembles an act of slaughter. Demar savra amrinan kein zevicha. Ella kein pnim. And one says it's not enough that the act resemble an act of slaughter, but it has to resemble something done inside the Beis Hamikdash. Because grasshoppers are never brought inside the Beis Hamikdash, therefore what? Therefore one will be potter. To which the Gemara says, "Lo, d'chuli amalo amrina kein zvicha ela kein pinim ba'inan." The Gemara says, no, everyone agrees that in order to be chayiv for Avoda Zara, the way in which you serve the Avoda Zara has to resemble something done, an Avoda done, inside the Beis Hamikdash. V'shayni chagov, but the grasshopper is different. Why? Hoil v'tzavaro doma l'tzavar behema. Because apparently, I guess certain types of grasshoppers, at least, the neck resembles the neck of a behema. So because the neck of the grasshopper resembles the neck of the behema, therefore what? The act of shchita resembles something done inside of the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore again one will be chayiv. Amrav Nachman Amrav Ravua Amrav. Avodas kochavim she'ovdin oso b'makos. We'll say this is kind of repeating a little bit of what we learned before. If you have an Avodah Zara, that you normally worship it with the staff. And we'll say again, as we saw before in Rashi, but Pashtus, what this means is shemekash kishin lefanei b'makos. They would knock on the idol. They would knock on the idol with the staff. So if you have this type of Avodah Zara, shavar makal b'fanei chayiv v'ne'aseres. So if you break the staff in front of the idol, so first of all you're chayiv for Avodah Zara, and what? And the staff is also aser. Zorak makel lefanel, but if you threw the staff at the idol, so what's the halacha? Chayiv, one is chayiv for worshipping Avodah Zara, ve'ina ne'aseres, but yet the staff itself is not aser. Amrali Rav Nachman, Maishno shever dehavile kein zvicha. So why is it that when you break the staff in front of the idol, why is it that you're chayiv for Avodah Zara? Because as you said before, the act of breaking the staff is similar to an act of slaughtering. Just like by slaughtering, you snap the neck of the animal, so to over here, you're snapping the staff. So the Gemara says, Zarak nami havye kein zvika. So understand when you throw the staff, you should also be chayiv. Why? Because that's similar to what Rabosai. That's similar to zvika. That's similar to sprinkling the blood. Amarlei, but zvika mishtaberes v'leka. He says no, because in zvika Rabosai, the way it works is called zvika mishtaberes, literally a sprinkling which breaks apart, which means larger droplets that break apart into smaller droplets. In this case, when you throw the staff at the idol, nothing is breaking apart, everything remains whole. So the Gemara says, Elame ata avne beis markel. Supposed to listen to this. If that's the case now that you're telling me that when you throw something at an idol, you really shouldn't be chayiv. Why? Because that act doesn't resemble something done in the Beis Hamikdash. Why doesn't it resemble zrika? Well, because zrika is what's called zrika mishtaberes. You take larger droplets, you sprinkle them, and they break apart into smaller ones. Any act of zrika that does not conform to the details of a zrika mishtaberes will not be chayiv. Well, if that's the case, the Gemara asks such a profound and fundamental question. El me'ata avne beis markelis b'maye asru. If that's the case, then why are you chayiv ultimately for going ahead and what? Throwing stones at markelis. So you both say, we assumed that what is it that's asr about throwing stones at markelis? That bepashtos, if you assume that the service of Avodah Zara somehow, some way has to resemble that which is done inside the Beis Hamikdash, then I always assumed that worshipping markelis ultimately is going to be asr because it resembles zrika, but it doesn't resemble zrika. Why? Because zrika has to be a zrika mishtaberes, right? A sprinkling where larger droplets break apart, larger pieces break apart into smaller ones, and yet that's not the case over here by markelis. So the Gemara says, he said, excellent question. I had the same question. Why should one be chayiv for throwing a stone at markelis? And all these great rabbis ended up asking Rav, and Rav said, Well, this is actually quite interesting. When you throw a stone at markelis, it's not just simply that you're worshiping the idol, but rather, again, you are enlarging the idol. The act of throwing a stone at markelis represents adding a stone to the structure of markelis. Take a look at Rashi. Hatosefes ala markelis katan le'asos markelis gadol v'isuro mishum avodas kochavim atzma v'lo mishum takroves. Both said this is very interesting. We always thought that the act of throwing a stone at markelis is like an offering to markelis. Kamasha says to the Gemara, no, what it is as follows. Apparently, you would start off a markelis idol, with 2 stones in one, and then people who worship it would come and they would cast a stone at it. We thought it's not throw a stone like knock it down. It's they would cast a stone. That act of casting a stone, we'll say, is what? is adding to the idol. The goal is you take a little markerless and you make a ze'akatan gadol yiyeh, right? You make it into a big markerless, right? That's the idea over here. So every stone is kimigadol avodah zara. So it's not takroves, interestingly enough. It's not an offering to avodah zara. Instead, what is it, Rabbi Osai? It's an enlarging of avodah zara. So the Gemara says, so that makes sense according to the opinion. It says that the avodah zara of an akum is asr immediately. El leman da amar ad shete avid tishtri. Rabbi Osai, according to the man who says that the avodah zara of an akum is only asr once it is worshipped, then by definition markerless, right? The markerless stones should be permitted. The halapalcha, because Rabbi Osai, ultimately again, you're telling me now that at the end of the day, the stones that are cast at a markerless, Rabbi Osai, are not a form of offering. If they're not a form of offering, but rather again they're a form of enlarging the idol, then what? Then lemaisa, again, the stones themselves are not considered an act of praying to the idol. If that's the case, the idol's never been prayed to. If the idol's never been prayed to, then what? Then what? Then it should be mutter. To which the Gemara says, Amrlei, kolachas va'achas na'asaf alas kochavim v'takroves lachaverta. So the Gemara says, really, each stone has a dual identity. Each stone, Rabbi say, ultimately, again, is kimegadol, enlarges the primary idol, but is also considered to be an offering to the stone before it. If that's the case, tishtri. Say if that's the case, then the last stone ultimately again should be permitted. Right, the last stone itself. Look at Rashi. Basraisa Tishri. It's almost right across in Rashi. Basraisa Tishri. Sharei avodas kochavim naasis aval lo ne'evda adayin. So because if that's the case, the last stone Rabbi say is what is enlarging markerless, but it hasn't been worshipped. Because Rabbi say, at what point in time does a stone become worshipped? Only when the next stone is thrown. But so the last stone Rabbi say, which is then becomes part of enlarging markerless, but has never actively been worshipped, should be permitted. So let's listen to this. So he said to him, great question. If you could find the last stone, you could take it and use it. Razor says, so, technically you're right, but Lamaisa, again, the ability to differentiate between the stones is virtually impossible. Rashi says, Kolachas va'achas na'as is takrovis liatzma, v'takrovis l'chaverta. But Rashi says a little bit differently. He says every stone is na'as takrovis liatzma, is worshipping itself and worshipping its friends. So both say it turns out that in Rav Ashi's model, every stone almost has a triple purpose. Number one, it goes ahead and enlarges markerless. As it enlarges markerless and becomes a deity, it also becomes an offering to itself and an offering to the stone before it. That's why even though the act of throwing the stone of markerless does not resemble an avodas pnim, it'll still be aser. Says the Gemara Tanan, Matzah berosho ksus umo. So this is actually our next Mishnah. So if you find on top of the markerless clothing or money, or kelim, or utensils for that matter, hari elu mutarin. We'll say ultimately again, all of these objects will be mutter. Again, we'll define why that is. Parchile andavim, but if you find clusters of grapes, ataros shel shibolim, or I will say literally wreaths made of grain, vienos or wine, shmanim, oil, salasos, right? Salsos, fine grain, v'chol davar shekiyosebo, or I will say anything else, karav legabe mizbeach. I'm sorry, karav legabe mizbeach, or anything else I will say that is normally offered up in the Beis Hamikdash, aser. These items will be aser. So let's analyze this. Bishlama yenos. We'll say first wide line on aleph and aleph. So bishlama yenos shmanim b'salaso. So I understand when it comes to wine, oil, and flour, ika kein pnim. V'ika kein zvika mishtaver. So we'll say all of these things are offered up inside the Beis Hamikdash, and they all fall under the category of zvika mishtaver. When you sprinkle them, I will say what happens. You start out with larger droplets and they break apart. So meaning if you take wine, oil, and fine flour, you start out with larger amounts and then those larger amounts break out. So that's why I understand that if you find those by the Avoda Zara, they become aser. We assume they've been used by the Zrika, by the Avoda Zara, and what? That Zrika resembles the Zrika of the Beis Hamikdash because it's a Zrika Mishtaberes. Ella, Parchili Anavim, Va'ataros Shal Shibolim. Lo kein penim ika, velo kein zvika mishtaberes ika. We'll say here's the problem. But when it comes to clusters of grapes, right? When it comes to ataro shel shiva, literally wreaths of grain. So I don't understand. Number one, these items are not offered up inside the Beis Hamikdash. Number two, there's no zrika mishtaberes. So why would it be aser? Amar Rava, Amar Ula, kigon shebatzar metchil lekach. Rava says, we'll say, what's the case over here? The case is where you cut down these items. You cut the cluster of grapes, or you cut the grain, the stalks of grain, for the purpose of Avoda Zara. And from the time you cut it down, it was for Avoda Zara. So what does that have to do with anything? Look at Rashi just a moment. It's Rashi almost right across. Shebatzar metchila, l'tzorech avodas kochavim, u'b'tzirusan avda la'avodas kochavim, dahavi kishever ma'aka lefanat d'dami lezicha. But remember, as we saw before, the act of cutting something resembles by definition the act of zricha, resembles the act of slaughter, of shchita. So when you cut down the clusters of grapes or the stalks of grain for the sake of Avodah Zara, that resembles what? That resembles shchita, which is an avoda pnim, which is an avoda done inside the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore will be aser. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Avo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Minayin is ovech behema balmum ba'alos mum la'avodas kochavim shu pater. But say, from where do we know that if you offer up an animal which is a balmum, right, a blemished animal to avodas kochavim, that you are going to be pater? Where do we know that from? Shneimar zovech le'elohim yacharam bilti lahashem levado. Literally, again, one who goes ahead and worships an animal to a foreign god will be killed. One is only permitted to worship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Lo asra Torah. So we'll say, what do you see from here? The Torah compares idolatrous practice to the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But we'll say, what's the point of that comparison? Lo asra Torah ela ke'in pnim, to teach us that one is only chayiv for worshiping Avodah Zara if that which they've done for Avodah Zara resembles that done inside the Beis Hamikdash. Havi ba Rava. So Rava wondered about this. B'mai. I will say, what exactly, what kind of balmum are we talking about over here? Ilema bedukin sheba'ayin. If you want to say, we'll say, bedukin sheba'ayin, that lashon sounds familiar. Why? Where have you seen that lashon before? You remember exactly that lashon in the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Right? They will say, ultimately, again, when Bar Kamsa tries to go ahead and malign the Jews to the Roman government, he tells the Caesar, the Jews are not going to accept your carbon. So remember again, what did he do? So the Gemara says he made some kind of mum in the animal that for the Goyim would be okay, but for us we wouldn't use. So one of the examples the Gemara says is bedukin sheba'ayin. Literally it translated says a cataract, but some type of issue in the eye. So the Gemara says hashal ibnei Noach chazia legavoa bebama didao la'avodas kocham mibai. I don't understand. Let's say a ben Noach, as much as I can't offer up an animal with an eye blemish inside the Beis Hamikdash, but this animal is absolutely permitted for a ben Noach to offer up on his bama. So we'll say if it's good enough for a ben Noach, it's certainly good enough for what? For avodas kochavim. Ela b'mechuser aver. Rather, what are we talking about over here? An animal lacking a limb. Uchid Rabbi Eliezer. Excuse me. Uchid Rabbi Elazar. Then Rabbi Elazar. Minay mechuser aver shu asur libnei Noach. We'll say, from where do we know that an animal missing a limb is asur for a ben Noach? Shene'emar umikol achayim mikol basar shnayim. So we'll say, what does the pasuk say? By Noach, the pasuk says, mikol achayim mikol basar shnayim. You have to take from every living thing too. So the Gemara says, Amar Torah, have behema shechayin rashin evarim shala. So we'll say, ultimately, again, only bring on to the teva an animal whose limbs are intact. Hi, umikol achayim baile. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. Hi, umikol achayim baile lemi uti treifa. So we'll say, 1 second, that mikol achayim is necessary to what? To exclude a treifa. That Noach was not permitted to bring a treifa animal on board. But remember again, a treifa, just on a basic definition, is any animal that has an ailment that is going to cause it to die imminently. But 1 second, the Gemara says, no. Me'elahachios zera nafka. We'll say the exclusion of a treifa from the teva is learned out from the statement lachios zera, that the animals are there to perpetuate their species. So therefore that excludes the treifa. Hanicha lemandamar treifa any oledes. So we'll say that's fine according to me. This is that a treifa is incapable of giving birth. Alamandamar treifa oledes Michael anymore. But we'll say according to the one who says that treifa is capable of giving birth. Then ultimately again you can't learn out from lachios kol zera. Lachios zera. What is there to say? Amakra itcha. Therefore, the pasuk says to Noach, "Bring the animals to the teva with you." Right? Lahachios itach. Excuse me, to live with you. Itach b'dom lacha. So we'll say itach means that the animals Noach have to be like you. Just like you are complete, so too the animals have to be complete. I v'dilma Noach gufei treifa hava. Maybe Noach himself was a treifa, right? You don't know about his bill of health, right? Maybe he was a treifa also. To which the Gemara says tamim ksiv. But we'll say the pasuk says tamim. The pasuk says that Noach was complete. So the Gemara says dilma tamim midrachav. So ultimately says the Gemara, one second, maybe tamim Ro says not a physical statement. Maybe it's a spiritual statement that he was complete in his ways. Bidrachav, tzaddik siv. It says that he's a tzaddik. So the Gemara says, "Dilma tamim bidrachav tzaddik mamasav." We'll say maybe tamim ultimately means that he was complete bidrachav. And we'll say ultimately with his midos, b'tzaddik b'masav, and he was righteous with his actions. To which the Gemara says, "Lo matzis amrit Noach gufei treifa hava." It's impossible to say that Noach was a treifa. Disar leitcha Noach treifa hava. Amali Rachmana de Kavasach Ayol Shleimin Lo Sayil. The pasuk says Itach Noach is supposed to take the animals ultimately with you, and we darshan Itach means Domelacha, like you. So if Noach is a treifa, God is telling him to take animals that are treifas also, but not to take healthy animals. Doesn't make sense. Hashtag de nafka me Itach lahachios Zara lamali. But so now that we know that Itach means that Noach is supposed to take animals that are healthy, then what does lachios Zara come to teach me? Say itach hava min letzav sava alma. But say if we would have just said itach, I would have thought, why is Noach commanded to bring the animals on the ark? Perhaps it's just for some level of companionship. Vafilu zakin, vafilu sris. So therefore, you can even bring an animal, even if it's very old, even if it's incapable of having children. Kamashal lachios zera. Therefore, the pasuk will say says that what lachios zera, that the point of the animals there was to perpetuate the species, and therefore the only animals allowed on the table were animals which could potentially perpetuate the species. But say just to close out that loop, it happens here that Rambam paskins that if an Ovid Avoda Zara goes ahead and offers up an animal that is a mechusar aver, that is missing a limb, one is not chai for that act of Avoda Zara. Because even the Ovdei Avoda Zara both say do not offer animals with missing limbs up. Therefore, one who does so is not in violation of worshipping idolatry. Amr Rabbi Lazar. So Rabbi Lazar says the following: Minayin l'shocheh peimu l'markelis shu chayiv. We'll say, how do I know that if I shecht an animal for markelis, I'm chayiv? We'll say, now what is the Gemara talking about over here? This is actually quite interesting. The Gemara says as follows. Remember, how do you worship markelis? You worship markelis again with stones. What the Gemara is asking over here is as follows: how do I know that if I shecht an animal for markelis, so ultimately again I'm chayiv? So we'll say what I'm doing over here is I'm worshiping the Avodah Zara of markelis in its non-normative fashion. But again, how am I worshiping it? With what is considered to be a normative mode of worship. So I'm using a normative mode of divine worship. It just happens to be that this is not the mode of worship for this particular idolatry. Yet, I'm still going to be chayiv. Where do I know that from? So the Gemara says, Shne'emar, v'lo yizbuchu od es zivchayim lasi'irim. Because the pasuk says, they will not offer up their offerings anymore to their gods. To their gods. So the Gemara says, so we'll say, if I don't need this, so what is this pasuk coming to do? This pasuk coming to say, you're not allowed to worship Avodah Zara. Bottom line. So we'll say, if the pasuk is not needed to teach to aser the normative form of worship, that's what kidarka means. Look at the last Rashi on the daf. Look at kidarka. So I have another pasuk that teaches me that you're not permitted to worship an idol in its normative way. If that's the case, then what does this pasuk prohibiting idolatry come to teach me? So the Gemara says it comes to teach me Teneu inyan l'shelo kedarka. It comes to teach me that whatever is considered to be a quote unquote normative form of worship is ushered by all forms of idolatry, even if the particular idol is not worshipped in that way. We'll say, from where do we glean the category of normative modes of worship? Where do we get that? Where do we get that category from? The Beis Hamikdash. Essentially, again, if you do to an idol anything that is done inside the Beis Hamikdash, one will be chayiv. One will be chayiv for that, even though the idol is not worshipped in that way. So I shecht an animal for markelis. Markelis is not worshipped with animal sacrifice. Nevertheless, again, one will be chayiv. So the Gemara says, but does this pasuk Eicha Yavdu Agayim Elas Elohayim? Does this come to teach me that I'm chayiv even for worshiping the idol shelo kedarka? Haimi v'ayli l'chidusanya. We'll say I need this pasuk to teach me another halacha. Adkan. What's the other halacha? We'll say Adkan hu medaber v'kachim she'ekdisham b'shas isra bamas v'grivin b'shas isra bamas. So we'll say up until this particular pasuk, Torah is speaking about karbanos that have been consecrated b'shas Isser Bamos, while the Bamos were Aser, and they will be offered up during the time of Isser Bamos. Shari Anshan Amar, Shene Amar, Val Pesach Oel Moed Lo Heviu. Because we'll say again, when there's a Mishkan standing, there's an Isser Bamos, and there is a prohibition to offer up karbanos on private altars, because the pasuk says, Al Pesach Oel Lo Heviu, Onesh Shamanu. So we'll say, I know the punishment, Ashara Minayim. From where do I know the warning? Let's remember again, we've seen this concept many times, where the Torah will often have two psukim. One to teach me the warning, right, the ashara, and one to teach me the onesh. I know the onesh, ultimately, again, for offering up a karban on a private altar, during the time when private altars are prohibited. Where is the ashara? Talmud Lomar, Pentala Olosecha. Uchid Rabbi Avin Abrabila. Dam Rabbi Avin Abrabila. Komakom Shenemar Shamar Upen Va'al, Eino Ela Belo Sasa. We'll say wherever the Torah says pen, al, right? He shamar pen and al. That is coming to teach me alo sase alav. Mikan ve'elech humedaber bekotchem shekdishan b'shas heter abamas ve'ekriven b'shas isra abamas. We'll say from this pasuk forward, the Torah is referring ultimately again to karbanos which were consecrated during the times where bamos were permitted, but ultimately again offered up when bamos became prohibited. Shneimar. Leman asher yaviu b'nei Yisrael sivchayim asher him zovchim sheitarti lecha kivar. But says the pasuk says that b'nei Yisrael will bring their offerings that they are offering sheitarti lecha kivar that I permitted you earlier. Al pnei asada, I will say on the face of the field. Melamed shekala zovech bebama b'shas Isra bamos ma'ala alav akosav kilu zovech al pnei asada. But say to teach you that's what anyone who offers up a karban on a private bama at a time when bamos are aser. That's the equivalent of worshipping idolatry. So the Gemara says, "Ve'vium la'Hashem zu mitzvahs asay." So that the both say you shall bring it, you shall offer it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This becomes the positive commandment. Both say first wide line, no nalaf on the days. Umitzvahs lo seseminai. Where's the prohibition from? Talmud Lomar v'lo yizbechu od es zivcheihem. You shall not offer up any more their karbanos. Yachol yehei anush kares. I might have thought again the prohibition will be punishable by kares. Talmud Lomar chukas olam tiyeh zos lahem. Zos lahem v'lo acheres lahem. We'll say zos meaning it'll be a lav, but it won't be karis. Amar Rava kari bei v'lo yizbechu v'kari bei v'lo od. So we'll say again we apply both statements. So look at the last Rashi before the Mishnah. Kari bei v'lo yizbechu v'kari bei v'lo od v'hai od lo itzdirich. That lo od will say is not necessary. Therefore shadi ashar tarvayu. Therefore, also you could apply the lav to both of these cases, and it turns out that over here there are in fact two lavim. So we'll say, so just the takeaway from this, by the way, is that indeed this is how we paskin halacha l'maisa. That even though each Chama of Avoda Zara often had its own unique type of worship, that Rambam paskins that if you engage in what's called certain, we'll call it objective modes of worship, one will be chayiv, even though that particular mode of worship does not apply to that particular carbon. So we'll say the paradigmatic example of this is shchita. Shchita. If you shecht an animal for any avodah zara, even if what? That avodah zara does not have animal sacrifice as part of its mode of worship, one will still be chayiv. It's will say pretty much if you take anything done in the Beis Hamikdash and you do it for an avodah zara, ultimately again one will be chayiv for such an act. Good, says the Mishnah. So let's go weiter. Matzah berosho, ma'os ksuso kelim. What's an interesting case? Back to Marcellus. I find on top of the Marcellus money, clothing, or utensils. Hare elu mutarin. We'll say all of these objects ultimately again will be permitted. Will be permitted. So the Gemara says, Parchilia anavim va'atar shoshibalim. But if I find clusters of grapes or literally wreaths of wheat, v'yenos ushmanim v'salasos, wine, oil, fine flour, v'chol davar shekiyotzi b'kar v'gab mizbeach, or for that matter anything else which can normally be offered up on the altar, aser. Ultimately, again, these objects will be aser. Now Rashi says over here, matzah berosho shel markelis maos ksusa kelim mutarin she'inon shel noi. What says we're going to see when you find clothing or you find money or you find utensils on top of the markelis. We'll discuss the parameters of this. they're not for the sake of beautifying the idol, and therefore what? Therefore they are mutter. Says the Gemara in Hanimili. I will say, from where do we know this from? Amr B'chira Yosef, Amr Boshia, Kasuf Echad Omer, Vatira Shikut Sehem, Ve'eski Lulehem, Eit Va'even Kesef V'zav Asher Imahem. I will say, the pasuk says, and they see their Shikut Sehem, their Avoda Zara, and their idolatry, Eit Even Kesef Zav, literally again, wood, stone, silver, gold that is with them. Because of Echad Omer, Lo Sachmod Kesef V'zahav Alehem. So we'll say in the other part says, you shall not covet the gold and the silver upon them. So we'll say, the pasuk uses two different words to describe the gold and silver of Avodah Zara. In the first pasuk, the Torah used lashon of imahem, with them. In the second pasuk, the Torah used lashon of alehem, on them. So the Gemara says the following. The Gemara says, "Haketzad imahem dumya da'alehem." That I will say the imahem with them is comparable to the on them. What does that mean? Ma'alehem davar shalnoi aser she'eno shalnoi mutter. We'll say just like on the idol, only gold and silver that is on the idol for decorative purposes is going to be aser. Af imahem. So too, even that which is not on the idol but with the idol, davar shalnoi aser v'she'eno shalnoi mutter. We'll say if it's decorative, it will be aser, but if it's not decorative, it won't be aser. It will be mutter. Ve'ima aleim dumya di'imam. But why don't you say that? Why don't you say aleim dumya di'imam? That on them should be comparable to with them. Ma'imahem kol ma'i she'imahem. We'll say just like imahem means anything that is with the idol. Af aleim kol she'aleim. So too, we'll say anything on top of the idol should be asur as well. Im kain lo yomru alehem. If that's the case, the Gemara says, if it's just imahem, you could just go ahead and forget about alehem altogether. So we'll say, so therefore the Gemara says over, this is the explanation of the Mishnah. The explanation of the Mishnah will say is, only something put on the idol for decorative purposes is going to be asur. Something that is just on the idol, but does not serve a decorative purpose, Rabbi saying, is not going to be asur as avodah zara. So Gemara says, I don't understand. Mos davar shalnaihu. I don't understand. Placing money on top of the idol could be decorative, could beautify the idol. Why does the Mishnah assume that it's mutter? Amr debei Rabbi Yanai bikis kasher v'talui lo b'tzavaro. So we'll say, what's the case? The case is not with the money. The money's in a pouch, and the pouch is tied around the neck of the idol. So that's not considered, a money pouch is not considered to be something decorative. Therefore, if you find the money pouch around the idol, around the marvelous, or any other idol for that matter, so the mice, again, the money will be permitted. I ksus davar shanayu. I don't say, but if you find an article of clothing on top of the idol, is that not decorative in nature, and therefore should be aser? Amidi Rabbi Yanai biksus mikupeles umunachos lo al rosho. What's he's talking about over here? An article of clothing that's folded up and sitting on the head of the idol. If it's folded up and sitting on the head of the idol, that's not decorative. That's not decorative. Therefore, again, it's going to be permitted. I kli. What about a kli? Davar shanayu. We're supposed to say, isn't a utensil on top of the idol a decorative item, and therefore, again, should be asher. The Mishnah says it's mutter. Amra papa disachifa le maskilta areshe. We'll say, what's the key? So here, if you look at Rashi, Rashi says this. It's almost right across. Disachifa le maskilta areshe kfuya la gvia areshe ve'ina asuy kmin kova. We'll say Rashi explains over here that's talking about like a water trough, that's overturned and placed on the head of the idol. So we'll say, so that's not derech kavod. That's not something. Again, that's bakavadik to the idol. It's certainly not decorative, and therefore it will be permitted. Anavasi bachia. So we'll say, so bottom line, halach l'mais was coming out of this Mishnah. Anyway, I say halach l'mais because it's indeed codified by the Rambam, that we would have assumed, or perhaps we would have assumed, that anything found on an idol or in proximity to an idol is treated like the idol. Kamashmal and say that it is only asur as part of the idol if what? If it's decorative in nature. But if it's clear that it's not decorative in nature, then l'mais again the object is permitted. Amar Rav Asi Barchia. Koshu lifnim min akil kalin, afilu mayim umelach aser. Chutz lekol kalin, davar shalnai aser, sheno shalnai mazim. Well, so this is actually very interesting. Rashi points out here, kal kalin is mechitzehi prusa lefnei avodas kochavim. The kal kalin hu kinu shaklayim. So listen to this. So apparently, it used to be customary that people would have their idol, and they would put curtains in front of their idol, like as a sign. We'll say again, probably a takeoff of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, right? Just like Kodesh HaKadoshim, there's a pargud, right? There's a curtain, and that curtain, I will say, indicates that there's a certain divine area that's off limits. So too again, people put their Avoda Zara behind curtains as well. So the Gemara makes an interesting distinction. Anything that's found behind the curtains, I will say, is considered to be an offering or part of the Avodah Zarah, therefore will be asur. Even things as simple as water and salt. If you find water and salt behind the curtain, ultimately, again, they will be asur. Anything in front of the curtain, right? The Gemara says, say anything that's found behind the curtain, even if it's just water and salt, will be asur. Outside of the curtain, davar shal noi asur. I will say that which is beautiful. In other words, that which is decorative, I should say, is asur. She'ino shal noi mutar. But if it's not decorative, it will be permitted. So we'll say if you're behind the curtain, everything is asur. In front of the curtain, if it's decorative, it's asur. If it's not decorative, it's mutar. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina naktinan in kalkalin lo lepa'ar v'lo lemarkalis. We'll say this is actually interesting. So Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina says, you know that by pa'ar and by markalis, they didn't use curtains. These idols were never curtained. I don't know if it's the right verb, but they were never placed behind curtains. They were always out in plain sight. So the Gemara says, "Lemai." So okay, who cares? Meaning, what does that matter? So ilema dafilu pnim kechutz dami v'shari. So maybe you're going to tell me that what it means is that there is no distinction. Whereas by other idols, we'll say, what did we say? Anything that's decorative in nature on the outside will be prohibited. If it's not decorative, then what? Then it's permitted. Behind the curtains, everything is asur. So the Gemara says, "Ilema dafilu pnim kechutz dami." Maybe you're going to say ultimately again that the outside, I should say behind the curtains like outside the curtain, v'shari. So the Gemara says, maybe you're going to say that lamaisa. Let's say again you find something in front of markalis or pa'ar, that ultimately again that it should be mutter. To which the Gemara says, "Hashta pa'uri mefa'arinan kamei mayim umelach lo makrivan le." So I'll say the Gemara says, I don't understand. What are you trying to say? That if you find something like water and salt in front of markalis or bal pa'ar, that's not, because they're just, we'll say water and salt are very simple things. You wouldn't normally offer it up to your idol. The only time water and salt is going to be asur, I'll say, is if it's behind the curtain. But markalis and pa'ar ultimately don't have curtains. So what are you going to tell me? That ultimately, again, that water and salt found in front of markalis or pa'ar should be permitted? The Gemara doesn't make sense. Bal pa'ar, you defecate on the idol. Markalis, you throw stones at the idol, we'll say. So water and salt is not good enough for these kind of idols. In other words, if you're defecating on the idol, water and salt will do just fine, right? In other words, obviously the standards are different for sacrificial service. Ella afilu chutz kipnim dami asur. Rather, what it means, we'll say, is to say as follows. That when it comes to these idols that do not have curtains, afilu chutz kipnim, which I will say means what? That anything found in front of the idol is the equivalent of having been found behind the curtain of the idol. So I'll say anything in proximity to the idol ultimately again is considered to be as an offering to the idol, decorative to the idol, and therefore will be asur. Says the Mishnah. Avodas kochavim shahaya lagina. We actually quoted this Mishnah before. Avodas kochavim shahaya lagina. Omer chatz nen mehen shlo b'tova. So let's listen to this. Let's say the Avodah Zara owns a garden or a bathhouse. Also, remember we saw this again with Rabbi Gamliel and the bathhouse of Aphrodite, right? So again, the Avodah Zara owns a bathhouse or a gina or a garden. O merchatz, or right, fine. So what's the halacha? And then we'll say you could use the bathhouse or you could use the garden. Shelo b'tova. We'll say now, what does shelo b'tova mean? Rashi says over here, it's the first wide line at the bottom of Rashi. So we'll say, as long as you don't pay money, as long as you don't go ahead and pay anything to the priests. So as long as you don't pay anything to the priests, ultimately, again, you could use the bathhouse, the garden, or anything that belongs to Avodah Zarah. We'll say, now what's the logic behind this? Rashi points out the principle, ein hektish la'avodas kochavim. I will say, there is no such thing as hektish by Avodah Zarah. Right? In other words, the Beis HaMikdash could own property, Avodah Zarah can't own property. Therefore, again, the bathhouse, the garden, totally permitted. The issue is just supporting and sustaining the priests of the idolatry. That you can't do. I will say that's number one because you're being mechazek Avodah Zarah, but also because remember the priests will also give thanks. This goes back to the beginning of the Masechta. Will also give thanks to their Avodah Zarah for the newfound wealth. So the Gemara says, "Shalom b'tov ve'einen mehen b'tova." sorry, ve'einen b'tovash. I'm sorry, I lost the. Fine. Let's say ultimately again, and we'll discuss exactly what this means. Let's say it belonged to the Avoda Zara and to others. We'll say you can get benefit from it whether you pay money or you don't pay money. Again, we'll define the scope of that ruling in the Gemara. We'll say the idolatry of an akum is asr immediately. What does it mean asr immediately? But Pashas, what that means is even before it's worshipped, right? It's already asr. V'shal Yisrael in asura ad shete ave. But the Avodah Zara v'dribah says only asr when? Only once it's worshipped. Amar Abaye says betova betovas komrim. So what Abaye says when we say that you can benefit from the gina, from the merchatz of the Avodah Zara, shelo betova, or I should say that it is asr betova. Betova means if you're paying money to the priests. Shelo betova. I'm sorry, I keep losing the place. Shelo betovas komrim. So we'll say without tova means that you don't pay money to the priests. La fuke tovas of deha deshari. As opposed to we'll say if you have to pay money to use these places, but the money goes to the people who serve the idol, not to the priests. So we'll say interesting enough, what Abaye is suggesting over here is that the issue is where you have to pay money to the priest. If you have to pay money to the priest, you can't use the gina or the merchas. If you have to pay money, but it doesn't go to the priest, instead it goes to who? To the followers, to the worshippers of the Avodah Zara, that's fine. That's fine. So the Gemara says, so we'll say others go ahead and put the statement of Abaye in the second part of the Mishnah. We'll say if the merchatz belonged to the Avodah Zara and to others, then ultimately again you could benefit from it whether you have to pay money or not. Amar Abaye says betova tova sachirim. So we'll say the case of tova means that you pay money ultimately again to what? To the worshippers, but not to the priests. Shelo betovas komrim. We'll say ultimately again without a fee means not having to pay to the priests. So we'll say we mandamasnia seifa kol shekin areisha. So the one who has a Abaye's statement on the reisha certainly agrees with his interpretation of the seifa. Umandamasnia reisha, but the one who has a Abaye's statement in the reisha avala seifa kevan diika achirim bahada afilu betovas komrim nami shaper damir. So we'll say interestingly enough, the machlokes between the two years also says as follows. So everyone agrees that if you could go ahead and use the gina, the merchatz, even if it belongs to Avodah Zara, you don't have to pay anyone. If it's free, then what? Oh, that's a mitzvah. Right? I'm saying, if it's free, then you could use it. What happens if you have to pay money? If you have to, so we'll say it depends. If the money goes to the priests, you can't use it. If the money goes to the worshippers, you can use it. The interesting nafkamina case between how you read Abaye and Rabbi will be in what case? Where the money goes both to the priests as well as to the worshippers. According to the first reading of Abaye's statement, if the priests share in it at all, you can't use it. According to the second reading of Abaye's statement, even if the priests share in it, as long as what? As long as it's not exclusively to the priests, but also going to the worshippers, it would be permitted. So a machlokis in the girs of Abaye. Avodas kochavim shall ovid kochav masrim yah. So also remember again, the Mishnah said that the Avodah Zara of an akum is asr immediately. So masnisim money. It was even before you worship it. So whose opinion does our Mishnah reflect? Rabbi Akiva, the sanya avei tabdunas kolam ekamos asher avdu sham hagoyim. Rabbi Akiva says, the pasuk says, destroy all of the places that the goyim, the nations, have worshipped there. Bekelim shenishtamshu bahen la'avodas kochav makasa medaber. We'll say the Torah is talking about utensils that were used, right? That served Avodah Zara. You have to destroy them. Yachal asom v'lo gamrum v'lo evium v'lo nishtamshu bahen. I might have thought that the Torah is telling me to destroy even utensils that were made but were never finished, or were finished and were not offered, or were offered, or I should say, or were brought to the Avodah Zara but were never used. Yachol yuasurim. I might have thought to both say that these objects should be asra as well. Talmud lomar asher avdu sham hagoyim she'ein asurim ad sheyavdu. So we'll say again, Rabbi Akiva darshan from the pasuk. Literally, abei tabdunas kol mekamos asher avdu sham hagoyim. We'll say, when does the Avodah Zara of an akum become asr? When? Only after it's worshipped. But even once it's made, even if it's made exclusively for the Avodah Zara, if it hasn't yet been used in worship, it's not asr. So the Gemara says, Tamlomar asher avdu sham hagoyim, shenisurin ad sheyavdu. Mikan amru, from here we learn, Avodas kochavim shel ovid kochavim eina asura ad shete avid. From here we learn that what? That the Avodah Zara of an Akron Abosai is only asur when? After it's been worshipped. The Yisra v'shel Yisrael asura miyad. Right? But ultimately again, of Yisrael, it will be asur immediately. Divi Rabbi Shmuel. These are the words of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva says, Rabbi Kiva Omer Chiluf Advarim. Rabbi Kiva says just the opposite. Avodas kochavim shel ovid kochavim asura miyad. Rabbi Kiva Rabbi holds that the Avodah Zara of an akum is asura immediately. V'shel Yisrael ad shete avid. But a Yisrael will say his Avodah Zara is only asur once it is worshipped. So we'll say fundamental machlokes Rabbi Kiva Rabbi Shmuel about again at what point in time does the Avodah Zara of a Jew and of an akum become prohibited. Rabbi will stop over here for today. We'll pick up Emirat Hashem with this machlokes tomorrow morning. Right.